Hi, Stamper fans. Welcome to another Make It Monday. I'm Nan Gerlitz, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Bloomington, Illinois. If you are watching the replay, welcome. I'm glad you've come by. I hope you learn a thing or two. That's my goal every week. So let's see. Just wait for a couple of eyeballs to show up. We've got some really fun things for you tonight. I've got quite a few alternatives to the card that I'm making, so that'll give you some more ideas for the same layout. I've got a fun little thing that I'm going to share with you about my online store, so stay tuned for that. And we also have a really fun World Card Making Day event coming up October 1st. So that should be fun as well, and I'll talk a little bit about that while we're stamping. So tonight we are going to be making this fun card, which won me my votes, weekly champion from our Friday night stamping competition. For those of you who don't know, my husband and I, my stamper man, every Friday night we come down to the studio. We each make a card. I post it over on my Facebook page, and you can then vote for your favorite, but I don't tell you who made which one until Monday morning when I reveal the winner. So if you'd like to get involved in that voting and that fun little competition, it's a friendly competition. You can follow me over on Facebook at Stamper Nan. I am Stamper Nan pretty much everywhere on the internet, so if you look for me, you'll probably find me. But yeah, so this particular card was my entry Friday night, and I won by a narrow margin. We've had some very close voting going on lately, which is awesome. I love that. We've been doing that for quite a few years, so that's a fun little thing for us. So as always, I have the supply list along with cardstock measurements linked in the video description. So if you forget to write it down or you don't feel like writing it down, no worries. You can just click that link and get all the information you need. So you can just sit back, relax, and watch what I'm doing and pick up a couple of tips, hopefully. So let me switch the view here. We'll get started. All right. So let me see. Okay. If you are watching live, go ahead and drop a comment so I make sure that those are working, because I'm always nervous, like, am I really live or am I just down here talking to myself in my basement? So we're going to be using two stamp sets tonight. One of them is the Jar of Flowers stamp set. This one's actually probably a couple of years old. And when I first got it, just like all of our new kids, right, everything's about that. And then they kind of sit by the wayside when you get new ones. Hi, Russ. And the other stamp set we're going to be using is the Amazing Phrasing stamp set, which is a free offering during Celebration with a qualifying purchase. Now, Celebration ends August 31st. And this will be available through the end of the month or while supplies last. So if it gets really popular, sometimes they run out, and too bad, so sorry. So these are the two stamp sets we'll be using tonight. Lots of fun there. Inks we'll be using, we've got 3 different ink pads. Our Sahara Sand, Pale Papaya, and Early Espresso. And then we'll be using a selection of our Stampin' Blends markers, which are our alcohol markers, great for blending and coloring. Let me see here. So we have Old Olive, Daffodil Delight, Pumpkin Pie. We have our Color Lifter, which I'll show you in a little bit. And then these are part of the, do they tell me on here what these are called? Because I can never remember. I think they're natural tones, I think is what they're calling them. So I have a little kind of a cheat sheet I made myself of these with an old stamp. So you can see here, here we go. So I just stamped the same girl's face from one of our previous stamp sets. And all of these particular ones don't have names, they have numbers, because it's for skin tones, but you can use them for lots of other things as well. So they come in pairs, just like the rest of our Stampin' Blends, but they're not meant to be a light and a dark. So like the 3 and 400 come together, but you can see they are different tones. for sure. They're not meant to be a light and dark of the same thing. They just come together like that. So you can see they have lots of different varying tones. So if you're doing a lot of skin tone coloring, you have a wide variety to choose from with these. I think it's 10 different sets, or five different sets, so 10 different blends. So I am using the pack that happens to have the 300 and 400 in it. I'll be using the 300 tonight, or the center of my sunflowers. All right, cardstock. We'll be starting with a base of Old Olive that is 8.5 inches by 5.5 inches, scored at 4 1/4. And I taught my class attendees. I had in-person class, you guys. I was so excited. Like, was it 11 days ago? Almost 2 weeks ago, I actually had people in the studio stamping, and I was teaching, and it was so exciting. I think I talked about it last week, but I'm still very excited. So I taught them this little tip. When you go and you score your cardstock with either a scoring blade, or if you have a score board kind of thing, you're going to leave basically a little dimple in the cardstock. And on the other side, it pokes outwardly, right? So if you want to remember how to do this correctly, not that if you do it the other way, it's wrong necessarily, but the best way to do it is, this one is a dimple. You like to see dimples. This one sticks up. It's a pimple, and we want to hide the pimples. So if you fold it so that the pimple part, or the bump dump part, is on the inside of the card, that's kind of how you're supposed to fold it, and that'll fold it the best way. If you fold it backwards, nothing's bad's going to happen. The cardstock police will not show up at your house. Everything will be just fine. But if you ever wondered, which way am I supposed to be doing this? That's the way. Okay, the next layer we've got is our early espresso, and that is a 5 1/4 by 4 inch. The next layer up is our pale papaya, and this one is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8, because I wanted a very thin border of that early espresso. We've got 2 pieces of our basic white, which is 5 1/4 by 4. One we're going to be stamping on, the others for the inside. And then we have a piece of designer series paper. This is from our Design a Daydream pack. That's a host special. Absolutely love this pack. You guys have seen it and seen it and seen it, I know, because it's gorgeous. There's so many patterns in it. But this one is 2.5 inches by 4. Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? We have our jar punch. So we'll be using that to punch out our jar. Imagine that. And then we'll also be using this combo pack of ribbons. So this is in, I believe, the mini catalog, the holiday mini as we call it. This is Old Olive and Sahara Sand, and it's a twill ribbon. We'll be using the Old Olive one tonight. This stuff, like, there we go. I'll give you a good, it handles like a dream. It's so nice to tie into a knot or a bow or whatever. It's just butter. We'll also be using some tear and tape and dimensionals, and my handy dandy serving fork. Oh, we're doing fork bows tonight, you guys. So hopefully, if you haven't seen me do that before, you'll pick up a little tip tonight. I absolutely love fork bows, and I figured out a new little way to kind of do them to save you some frustration when you want to wrap that around a card. It's a fun little tip. So that's new. Okay, let's get started. So first we're going to do, I'm going to take that piece of designer paper and I'm going to trim it down. So I'm going to trim off a 1/2 inch and use that on the inside of my card. Okay, but then the pale papaya layer is actually 1/8 inch narrower than this. So I'm just going to trim that little 1/8 inch off. So that'll fit on the front. But I purposely, obviously, trimmed it a little wider so it would fit on the inside of the card as well. So since this is such a skinny little strip, I'm going to take my liquid glue, which I didn't put on the list, but you know, if you guys have been stamping for a hot minute, you probably have some liquid glue as well. So since that's so skinny, I'm going to take the liquid glue and do this so that I have some wiggle room and I can get it all lined up very nicely. Now, I don't care like who you are and how good you are, unless you're a robot, you're not going to always do things exactly how they should. So you can see that's peeking out ever so slightly. So I'm just going to take my scissors here and just trim that little bit. Probably never would have noticed it, but I noticed it. So, you know, that's how it is. So as usual, I'm going to get the inside of my card out of the way so that I don't have to worry about it. We're going to put a little stamp and seal top and bottom. Get our card base out and adhere that. So you could either have your designer paper top or bottom. I think I want mine on top since it's all the way across. But that is a nice, easy way to tie in the front of your card with the inside of your card. You could also do that on the flap of your envelope to tie that in as well. Actually, we're only wrapping the ribbon around the papaya layer, so I'm going to go ahead and attach this espresso layer to the card front too. Get another thing out of my way. Because even though I do make a bit of a mess, I like an organized chaos when I stamp. So, all right. So we've got that all done. We can put that aside for now. And let's do some stamping. Okay, so we've got three kinds of things we're stamping around here. Let's do our sayings first. So that is our amazing phrasing stamp set. I do love this. I mean, you can see you've got 4 big greetings with the woohoo and amazing and hey and oops. And then you've got a lot of things, you know, to another year around the sun, good looking, you know, I miss you, so sorry, I'm the worst, oops, I'm the worst. Like, you know, it's nice to be able to just play around with that and make up your own phrases. So I've got some alternate phrases on my alternate cards coming up later, so you'll see some of those put together. And I want to thank the Stamper Man for this because he's the one that suggested. I was trying to figure out, I had everything done except for the woohoo on this card on Friday night. And I was trying to figure out, I was going to actually stamp it on like a white piece or the olive or something and kind of make a tag up here. And he suggested I just do it tone on tone and have it peeking out behind the flowers. And it turned out so great. I loved it. So thank you again for that tip. All right, so right up towards the upper left here. There we go on that. Clean that off. And then we will do, so I decided to make this into a birthday card because birthday cards are my theme for this week over on my Facebook page. Let me once again remind you where to find that. So each week I kind of pick a different theme. It might be around a product, it might be around a particular stamp set or a color combination or whatever. This week I'm doing birthday cards because our son's birthday is this week. So I thought, well, I'll just get a jump on that. So let's see, I need to find, this is the tricky part with sentiment stamp sets, is trying to read the words backwards. So I'm looking for, what am I looking for? To another year. That's what I'm looking for. There it is, right in the middle. You kind of have to say, okay, I'm looking for a 2-letter word, 2-letter word to start, you know. So, and in a scripty font like this, sometimes it's hard to read it backwards. So, all right. So this is another thing I often forget about, is stamping right on your designer paper. So especially when it's it's not a really busy pattern. This is a tone-on-tone green kind of lattice work. So I had plenty of, you know, it was going to show up great if I just stamped this in a darker color like the espresso. So I'm just going to pop that down towards the bottom, right on the designer paper. Voila, I love it. And like I say, I always forget about that. I always think, oh, I got to stamp it on white. I've got to stamp it on a neutral, just like this. I've got to stamp it on, you know, white or vanilla or something like that, or emboss it on black. And no, you don't. You can stamp it on any color you want. You can even stamp on your designer paper. Okay, so that's that stamp set. Now we are going to come in with our Sahara sand and stamp our jar and our flowers. Got those nice sunflowers. And I think you guys, didn't I just tell you guys last week how I didn't do sunflowers because they're always yellow? I think I was talking to all y'all about that. And yellow is just not one of my favorite colors. So it's like, whatever. And so because of that, I've never been a huge fan of sunflowers. I think they're amazing. They're usually huge and it's so cool, but they're not my favorites because they're all yellow. So, but I loved this as it came out. Now, normally when I am coloring with my blends markers, I'm stamping it in the Memento black ink that, you know, you see quite a bit of on my lives. And that is a water-based ink, so it's perfect when you're stamping with your blends. But guess what? All of our regular classic pads are also water-based ink. So you can stamp in any of our regular classic Stampin' pads and still use our blends with them. I think that if you were going to heavily color, it does blur the lines a little bit, and the Memento holds up a bit better than that. But, you know, you're all good. And actually, this was the first time I ever used this sunflower stamp out of this jar of flowers stamp set. Even though I've had it for a couple of years, and I used to use it like every week. So, but yeah, I wanted a less harsh outline on all of on the flowers in the jar and everything. I wanted something a little more subtle. So that's why I reached for the Sahara sand, because it was kind of in that brownie, you know, ooh, brownies. It was in that kind of brownish color family that I got going on. And don't forget your stems. So you can ink up those stems and go right onto the jar. So then you've got your stems coming down in your jar. So you can have those there, or you could not have them there. And you could have it be like a solid color jar if you want, and you could color that in as well. I'm going for a clear jar. All right. So that is all of our stamping. Now let's get to our coloring. And while we're coloring, I'll tell you some stories. So I am going to cut out these flowers. I'm going to punch out that jar, but if you're going to die cut or punch or cut out, it's best to color first because you've got a bigger, you know, swatch of paper to deal with, and then you can cut it out. So, all right. So I think we're going to start with our olive. The same way as I did a couple of weeks ago, maybe it was just last week with the big flower bunch. Sometimes I have trouble differentiating when everything's just stamped in one color between what's a leaf and what is a flower petal. So I like to do my leaves first. So if you have that same kind of problem, tackle those leaves first. So I'm going to do the stems, and I'm going to start with the dark olive and just give some shading into these ones that kind of overlap or they're under another one, because I feel like, oh, that's where the shading would be, right? Maybe these ones that are towards the back of the jar, so to speak. It just gives you a little bit more depth in the in the stamped image. You don't need a lot. Do a little bit of that, and then I think I'll come over and pop some green on these leaves, if I can find them all. There's actually not a lot there, that's right. So I've just got, I'm going up the stems a little bit. I think I went up, I just kind of dotted up that one. And we've got some here. Most of these are flower petals. Thank goodness I already colored one, so I have a cheat sheet to go off of. All right, so I usually start with my dark and then I come back in with my light. Because these stems are pretty skinny, I'm using the skinnier end of the blend. So you've got the brush tip or the bullet tip, and I'm using the bullet tip for everything because most of these images are a little smaller. So you want to start on that dark and kind of pull it down into the lighter color, and that will help blend them, hence the name. And I will say also, I have trouble differentiating between what are stems and what's between stems on this. And if you do too, don't worry. Nobody's going to notice. Nobody's going to take a magnifying glass to your card when they get it and go, did she color those stems right? They're going to go, isn't that so pretty? I'm so glad she thought of me. And oh, I'm going to put that right on my mantle or stick it on my fridge. So don't worry about it. You're your own worst critic. All right, let us work from light to dark. So I'm not sure if I told you this color right, but this is actually pumpkin pie. Even though this one, the light pumpkin pie the cap looks so light, it looks like the pale papaya, but it's actually light pumpkin pie. And that's what I'm using for a couple of these other flowers, like this center here, I used that, and then this one here. I didn't want everything to be yellow. I wanted to add some other colors there. And then I came up these guys, and again, I'm just kind of dotting. There's a little bit there. There's a couple of buds here. So we'll just add a little bit of that orangey color so that everything is not all yellow. Okay. Now we'll get to our Daffodil Delight. But first, wait, there's more. I'm actually going to use the dark pumpkin pie and do a little bit of dotting on these, kind of towards the center of these sunflowers. Then I'm going to pull that color out. Again, I'm not being fussy about this at all. I just want the color laid down, and then I will pull it out with the daffodil. All righty, so that's our pumpkin. So now I'm going to take the dark daffodil first, and I'm just going to scooch it out from that pumpkin. So I want to blend that line. You can see what I'm doing there. So the center there, I've done the dark pumpkin. I did the same thing here, and then I went over it with the dark daffodil to kind of pull that color out. I'm going to do the same thing on these other two. I'm not going to worry too much if I get into the center because those are going to be a deeper brown, so I'll hide all of my mistakes that way. And then we'll go to the light daffodil, and I'm going to go up, and you'll notice I've got the brush tip here, and I'm actually pushing it towards lightly. Don't press down. You don't want to ruin your tip, but I'm just pushing it towards the tips of those flowers. And you don't have to get all the way out. Because they're alcohol markers, they will spread a little bit if you lay down a lot of color. So it'll probably kind of migrate towards the tips of these petals. But if there's some white space, that also looks very artistic. So don't be afraid of your white space. Because you're not a kindergartner trying to color right up to the lines in a coloring book. You're trying to make a little piece of art. So don't worry about it being perfect. Just do what feels right. You can always lay down more color if you look back and go, nope, just doesn't look right. All right, get this last one's got kind of the biggest petals, so we can do some real pushing outwards. So basically these alcohol markers, it's kind of like working with maybe like a watercolor or something. So if you lay down some yellow and then you come back in with blue and you kind of mix, then they're going to make green, they blend together. So, so it's a nice way to really have some artistic ability, even if you didn't think you did. And this last kind of jagged flower here, I'm going to just come in with the daffodil. Not even going to worry really about shading that one so much. All right, and now we're going to grab our number 300, and I'm just going to take to the centers, squiggle around the outside pretty much, because you'll notice there is that stamped bit in the center, so I'm just going to ring around that, and you're going to say, well, that's really dark, and you can't see that anyway. That is what the color lifter is going to be for. That's going to create a little bit of magic for us. So the color lifter is a clear pen. It can help you if you went outside the lines a little bit. It can help erase some of that or push it back towards the lines. It's not a miracle worker, so if you really made a mistake, it's not going to take everything away. But the other thing it's really great for is adding highlights and lightening areas. So what I did was I just went around the center of these, of the flower centers. And right now you're like, it doesn't look like I did anything, but it's going to start lightening up as it kind of dries, as it evaporates. So you squiggle it around a little bit, and then you kind of move to the next one, and then you see what it did and decide if you like that. A little bit more on this guy, I think. So you can see we've got some definition here. We've got some variation. So it's almost like reverse blending, if you will. So that's really fun if you've got, if you picture a balloon and there's always that highlight on one side of the balloon, you can totally use the color lifter to take some color away from areas where you want kind of a little highlight, like a balloon or a jar or something like that. That would totally work. Okay, let's start some assembly, and I'll tell you those stories I promised you because I got to talking about coloring. So something that happened today, one of my coworkers who is a stamper, friend of mine, she came up and she said, oh, I'm working on a wish list and, blah, blah, blah. And she was trying to figure out if I knew which clear blocks she had bought before for her stamps. So I said, oh, yeah, I can totally look that up. I'll let you know. So if you've ever ordered from me and you're wondering, I don't want to dig out all my stuff, whatever, but did I order this before? I can tell you, just ask. But then I realized, oh, hey, you know what you can do? And I don't think I told you. You could totally do a wish list on my online store. So when you go to stampernan.stampitup.net, you click the Shop Now menu, and what happens is, you're looking through products, you're like, oh, I really like that one, and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to remember that. None of us do. We think we will. But it's kind of like, anything else. You're on Amazon, you add it to a list, whatever. You can make lists on my store. So you can have a favorites list, you could have a wish list, you could have a gift list that ideas for other people. So you can totally do this, right? And I told her, go ahead and just click the heart on whatever products you want to add to your list. And then, when you place your order, you can always take them off, and then you know what you have left that you still wanted to get. The other cool thing, we're heading into heavy gift giving season, is you can share those lists just like you can on other websites. So your husband, your mom, your dad, your brother, whatever, your sister, your friends, send them to everybody. Then you'll get the good stuff that you want this year. So yeah, that's a fabulous way for you to keep track of what you have. Because you can also, like, I have my own profile on my public page just for that, just so that I can keep those lists. So I have one list that I have named have. So I know what I have and what I still want. So if you want to make a list that says have, that way you know, oh yeah, I bought that already. I have that already. So some really good little tips there for you. So, okay, so here we're going to do our fork bow again. So just leave it on the spool. You'll have less waste that way. You're going to come over from the right side and around, as my friend Jamie taught me, over the river, through the woods. So you're going to go through that middle tine underneath what you just did. And you're going to hold onto this piece between your fingers, yank that guy down, and come back up between that middle tine, okay? In that middle space. Then you just flip it over and you tie it in a knot. Just a single knot, not a double. And then when you slip it off, you have this gorgeous bow. Both sides are equal, and if you tug on it, it's not going to untie. It's fabulous. Absolutely love this little trick. So normally what we do is we leave this tail pretty short, we cut the other one, and we'll add this to a card with a glue dot. Well, if you want it to look like it's wrapped around the card, you just leave that tail a little longer, and now I can wrap that around the card, and I have this perfect bow right where I wanted it. It's genius. So what I'm going to do, we're going to pop it around here. I need my tear-in tape because, as y'all know, if you've been watching me for a minute, this is how I like to attach my ribbons to the back, because then I can use that adhesive as well. So I want this on the left side. I want it to be at the top of my designer paper. So we're just going to tape that down. Pop it around this way. Always finding the end is a little challenging. There we go. Okay. Now I can take my snips and I can just trim that off and trim this one too. So that's how much waste I have, which is a lot less than if I tried to tie a bow, wrap it around and tie the bow and everything. Plus it would be moving all over the place, drives you crazy. So that little fork trick is so fabulous. I absolutely love it. Now we can put adhesive down top and bottom on this guy. Grab my Take Your Pick tool and pull the backing off of my tear-in tape. Tear-in tape is a great adhesive for making 3D items like gift boxes and bags and things like that. Anything that's going to have a little bit of stress on it, trying to pull away, because flat cards, you know, they're sitting like this. They're not trying to pull away from anything. But if you've got a bit of ribbon, now I've introduced a little bit more tension to that card. So I do like to use it for my ribbon because it not only holds down the ends, but then the other side will adhere it to the card so that ribbon won't be trying to pull away. Okay, so now all we have left is our jar. We'll open up our punch. And I will say, yeah, my punch is getting a little sticky, I noticed last night. So I'm going to need to, if you ever have a punch that's kind of sticky and a little hard to punch through, you can just fold up some wax paper, so it's like maybe 4 layers thick, and punch that repeatedly with your punch, and it should lubricate the punch again, or kind of, you know, just a little bit of wax buildup to help make it smooth again. So we're just going to punch that jar out, and now I do have to fussy cut the flowers, or as my friend Penny says, cranky cut, because she thinks fussy's a little too nice. So what about you all? Do you like fussy cutting, or are you really not a fan? I will say I used to really not be a fan. Like, I used to tell other people, you have to cut mine. I'm not going to do that. So apparently it was cranky for me as well. But now I actually kind of like it because I've practiced a lot, so I've gotten better. So when you're fussy cutting, you want to keep the scissors steady and you're going to move the cardstock. So just keep that steady squeezing of your scissors. Stop whenever you need to open them again. And then just keep rocking the cardstock, turning it however you need to go. But the scissors stay straight. And once I figured out this trick, once somebody taught me, I was like, oh, that's much easier. The other thing is I think I used to hold the scissors really tight. I'm a little tightly wound sometimes. So I would always have like divots in my fingers from when I was holding the scissors. So just relax and keep rocking that cardstock. Don't worry about it being perfect. You are not a die cutting machine. And I guarantee you, you'll probably notice all the imperfections and the, oh, I wish I had done this way, and nobody else will notice. So don't be hard on yourself. It's art. As I always tell you guys, have you ever seen a Picasso? Those things are a mess, and he made millions. Okay, so I'm just going to space this so I have an idea of, I want to make sure you know that that says woohoo up there, and you can still see to another year. All right, and now we're going to get our dimensionals out. So the important thing that I realized with the dimensionals is you don't want to put a dimensional towards the bottom of your flowers because your jar is going to be up on dimensionals too, and you don't want to double that up. So I feel that 3 dimensionals on the back of this jar is plenty. So we'll do that first, and you'll notice I put one towards the bottom and one towards the top, and then just popped one in the middle. Right there. And then we will do another 3 for the flowers. So I'm going to do 2 up top. I like to kind of do a triangle that keeps it from rocking and being weird. And then 1 in the middle there. Take my backings off. And we'll just pop that on there. And voila! That is really close this time. How often do I have it where it's really that close? That's really... All right. So I did promise you some alternatives. Before I get to those, I also wanted to show you something fun that came in the mail over the weekend. And I haven't been doing this very much here, but I got my latest Paper Pumpkin kit. Paper Pumpkin is our monthly subscription kit, and it's basically pre-designed creative project in a box. And everything you need is in there. It's awesome, including the adhesive. You might need a pair of scissors. So this one was special. Normally we get 1 of these little, they're called Stampin' Spots. So they're basically little 1-inch ink pads. So we got 2 of them this time. And look at that, sunflowers. But it's a very, let me tell you, this kit is so popular, they don't even have refills available. They sold out. So it's awesome. This one, they also gave us an extra free gift, these really cool gold honeycomb layers. So interesting to see what I'll do with that. I always save my tissue paper and I put it in our gift wrap box. So I have extra tissue paper. I can't tell you the last time I had to buy tissue because I save it every month. And then here, we'll just flip this over. So this is going to make, what, 9 cards. So see, they did use that honeycomb kind of lattice thing on this green card. So I'll use a few of those. Some gorgeous, we've got some stamping we're going to be doing. A lot of this is pre-printed. And then they've got matching envelopes. So these kits are just fabulous. And the next few, so it's too late to get this one. The next one we've got coming out, you need to subscribe by September 10th if you haven't already. And that's going to be Halloween themed treat boxes, 18 of them. So that's great. And then the next 2 after that are going to be Christmas oriented, and they will be holiday cards and then gift tags. So It's always a surprise exactly what everything looks like, but they have been telling us ahead of time if it's cards or if it's treat packaging or something else and how many you're getting. Usually we can kind of tell a color scheme or a theme, like we knew this was going to be sunflowers. So lots of fun. Okay, alternative cards. Sorry, you guys are like, get on with it, lady. So I basically took that, there's my stamp set, there. I took the jar of flowers and I decided, well, I'll make 3 others and I'll use the other 3 kinds of flowers that were in here to make the other alternative cards. So we have an Amazing Together card, which could be perfect for an anniversary or a wedding. You know, there's lots of different things. So this one, I pulled some of our gold and silver designer paper. That's another freebie that can be earned during celebration. And I pulled the metallic out of there and I did a metallic layer of copper behind here. And then our succulent ribbon, which is this open weave, so pretty. So exactly the same layout as you can see. And next, I pulled our roses out and just a little "Hey, I miss you" card. Now you can see that this would be really great for holiday time, obviously, this color combination. We've got our real red and shaded spruce, and then I've got petal pink. So instead of the white layer, which I normally would do, I went all with these colors, and I'm really loving how they turned out. And then the last one, I went full bright for you. And we've got another, this is the silver of the silver and gold designer paper. I've got a silver edged ribbon to pop on that. And we've got granny apple green and polished pink and Tahitian tide. So it's like, woo! And you'll see I stamped right on the designer paper here. I didn't with this one. I cut that out because I was worried about these metallic parts. And you can see that the ink did not take to the metallic parts. So it's kind of this cool polka dot greeting. And I actually liked how it turned out. So there's the 4 different cards we've got. All same layout, all completely different looking because I switched out the papers and the colors and used the different flowers. So you can do a lot with this layout, as you can see. It's super, super versatile. Let me switch the view here real quick. Turn this off. There we go. Hello, friends. So yeah, this layout, again, I think a couple of weeks ago I did a layout that I'm like, I'll be doing this one again and again. I can see a lot of our Christmas cards might come out of something like this. Really, really super versatile. And you can see just by changing colors or changing the image, maybe I could have grabbed those hippos or something else. I could have made a completely different kind of card. So do remember that this week I will be featuring birthday cards over on the Facebook page. So if you don't follow me there currently, hop on over and follow me if you're on Facebook. If not, I'll be back here next Monday night with another fun tutorial. So I hope you learned a little something new today. I hope I gave you a good tip. If I did and you have not subscribed yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you know that when I'm live again or whenever I upload videos. And if you learned a little something new, go ahead and share it with a friend so that they can learn something new too. So until next Monday, I'm still Nan Gerlitz. Happy stamping.